today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys about one of my favorite women in metal and punk, Wendy O. Williams. Wendy Orlean Williams was born on May 28, 1949 in Webster, New York. She had a relatively normal childhood, all things considered. Her dad was a chemist and her mom was basically a stay-at-home mom. However, later in life, Wendy would say that she often felt misunderstood by her parents and she referred to them as cocktail zombies. Wendy went to R.L. Thomas High School in Webster, where her classmates and her teachers would recall Wendy as being a very shy and pretty girl. She was an average student, and she often spoke so softly you would have to lean in to hear what she was saying. She also studied clarinet at the Community Music School at the University of Rochester, where she would later become the clarinetist in her school band. And a lot of people would say that Wendy seemed like she was going to be a normal member of society, but she was meant for so much more than that, and she knew it. Halfway through Wendy's sophomore year of high school, she decided to drop out. And she had her first run-in with the cops very shortly after that, at just 15, when she was arrested for sunbathing nude in public. A year after that, in 1965, when she was 16, she decided she was going to leave home and she hitchhiked all the way to Colorado, where she would make a living selling crocheted bikinis. One day, Wendy decided that she wanted something different in life, so she headed to Florida, where she became a lifeguard for a while. And when she was tired of being a lifeguard, she headed off to Europe, where she became a chef. And when she was tired of being a chef, she headed to London and became part of a traveling dance group. However, at this time, she was being arrested a lot because she was shoplifting and using counterfeit money. In 1976, Wendy decided to go back to New York, and she lands in New York City. And when she arrives, she notices an ad that's in the Show Business magazine that was laying open on the floor of the bus station. And little did she know that this ad was about to change her life. The ad was basically a casting call for a radical new artist named Rod Swenson and his project called Captain Kink's Theater, which was basically just a live sex show. So Wendy responded to the ad, she got the job, and pretty soon she was performing in this show a few times a week. And she was becoming very popular. Everyone loved Wendy, so she started to see her potential as an artist or at least a public figure. So 1977 rolls around. Rod is now Wendy's manager, and he recruits her to be in his new metal/punk rock band called the Plasmatics. And she agrees, so now Wendy is the lead of this awesome band, and in 1978 they have their very first show at CBGB's. Plasmatics actually became pretty big at the time, and Wendy became known for her extreme stage performances and her action-packed music videos. She also loved doing her own stunts in her music videos and on stage, so she would do shit like chainsawing through fucking guitars, she would blow up cars, she would dangle from rope ladders that were hanging from airplanes. She had no fear and she didn't give a shit. Eventually, they started touring the world, and people loved Wendy. She was the perfect lead, wearing revealing outfits, saying whatever was on her mind, blowing shit up, and people loved it, because she was really the first woman to do any of this stuff at all. And she became very well known for her. She was also charged with battery of an officer and obscene conduct, even though those charges would later be dropped, like a lot of them were. Wendy didn't scare easily though, and she continued doing her shows the way that she wanted to do them, which often meant that she was basically nude on stage, simulating sex acts. She condoned violence but was very against sexism in the scene. She was very open about her hatred for authority, and she would get in trouble multiple times in multiple different places for acting out this way. But she didn't give a fuck. She really was that bitch.
She's got a point. She's an icon. She's a legend, and she is the moment. Now, come on now.
She wasn't just like that for her shows either. This wasn't some persona that she put on for the public. This was who she was as a person. In 1981, she got arrested for assaulting a photographer, just some random person who took her picture while she was running along the Chicago lakefront. Anyway, Wendy went solo in 1982, and she recorded a duet of the country song Stand By Your Man with her very good friend Lemmy from Motorhead, who I used to affectionately call Cocoa Puff Man. Later that same year, in 1982, Kerrang! Released their number 72 July issue with Wendy on the cover. She was actually the first woman to ever be featured on the cover, so this was a huge deal for her. In 1984, Wendy released her solo album called the Wow Album, and this was produced by Gene Simmons from Kiss, which was also another big deal for her. He also played bass on that record, however, he's credited as Reginald Van Helsing. She would do her own thing for a couple of years, and then in 1986, she actually starred in a really well-known movie called Reformed Schoolgirls. And when the movie came out, Wendy and Rod, they didn't really like it, but they appreciated the fact that the producers put in a few songs off of her second solo album, Commanders of Chaos, in the movie, and she also does the title track for the movie, so it was a win-win for her. Wendy did some acting over the years. She was in The New Adventures of Beans Baxter in 1987 and in Pucker Up and Bark Like a Dog in 1990. However, her passion was with her music. Unfortunately, though, the Plasmatics would do their last tour in 1988. In 1991, Wendy moved to Connecticut with Rod, where they lived in a geodesic dome house that they built together, and she worked as a wildlife rehabilitator during this time. She said that she needed to get away from it all, and she was just so fed up with dealing with people. At this point, even though Wendy took very good care of herself and seemed to love life, she had this burden of depression that she had carried around for years, often saying that she didn't feel like she belonged anywhere. She felt this way ever since she left home at 16 when she went to travel the world for several years, and at that time she was really interested in Far Eastern spiritualities, she was interested in different religions and gurus, she would take mind-altering substances to try to figure out where she belonged in life. It wasn't until she went back to New York and saw that ad where she finally found where she belonged, in her band, the Plasmatics, and you can tell that that was probably the happiest she had ever been. She just radiates when she's on stage. You can tell that's like her happy place.
Your title, You're a Zombie, does that mean we watch much TV?
Well, we do live in
a... It's got a TV brain and a pixel head.
Yeah,
you walk and talk, but you are dead.
Well, you know, like we do live in a country where if you take away the TV sets, you do have a revolution on your hand. I mean, this is it's an interesting observation. See, it's mind-provoking, mind-bending, hopefully mind-altering. Hopefully you'll never be the same again after you listen to my music or go to one of my shows.
Given her hardcore lifestyle, Wendy was known for being a kind soul and for taking very good care of herself. She had been a committed vegetarian since the 60s, and she believed in leading a healthy lifestyle and aiming for self-improvement. She was featured on the cover of the Vegetarian Times, and in her later years, she quit smoking and she quit drinking. She was even opposed to high sugar content in processed foods, and she would run 6 miles a day. We're going to be getting into Wendy's death now, so if this is going to trigger anybody, then feel free to leave the video and I'll see you guys next time. But if you're up for it, then let's keep going. Wendy did die by taking her own life, and she had 2 very serious yet failed attempts in the past before she ultimately succeeded in April of 1998. Her first attempt was in 1993 when she hammered a knife into her own chest until it got lodged in her sternum, and it was at that point she had to go find Rod to bring her to the hospital, and she ultimately changed her mind. The second time was in 1997 when Rod had found her again when she tried to OD on pills. On April 6, 1998, at 48 years old, Wendy would unfortunately finally succeed by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Rod, who had been her partner now for 20 years, was the one who found her body in a wooded area on their property. He said it seemed like she had been feeding the squirrels moments before it happened, and she had also secured a bag around her head so that he wouldn't have to see her like that, although she knew he would be the one to find her. Rod also found the note that she had left behind, and he shared a part of it with people, and part of it said, "I don't believe that people should take their own lives without deep and thoughtful reflection over a considerable period of time. I do believe strongly, however, that the right to do so is one of the most fundamental rights that anyone in a free society should have. For me, much of the world doesn't make any sense, but my feelings about what I am doing ring loud and clear in an inner ear and a place where there is no self, only calm." Joey Ramone and many others issued statements about Wendy at the time of her death, and on Motorhead's 1999 live album, Everything Louder Than Everyone Else, Lemmy actually dedicates the song No Class to Wendy because that's a song that they used to sing all the time live together, and I'm sure her death really affected him. They were really close. A memorial was held at CBGB's on May 18th, where several of Wendy's former Plasmatics members played a 6-song set with 4 people handling vocals in her honor. While I was researching this video, I came across a couple of links that I found really interesting, so of course I'll put those in the description box if anyone's interested. Also, I know that the topic of today's video was a little heavy, so if you're feeling down and need someone to talk to, I have information for that as well in the description box. If you found this video interesting, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit that thumbs up, and that's gonna do it. So I'll see you guys next time.